Okay, good evening members. Welcome to our last meeting of this year. It seems to have gone very quick, hasn't it really? Been a really eventful year. Are there any apologies for absence, please? Councillor Brown, you're substituting for Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Jackson, thank you.
That's great, thank you. Got any other? Councillor Wilding?
Councillor Anang is held up in traffic. Councillor Gilbourne, I believe, is going to be subbed, but to be honest, I'm not sure by who. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but Habib's just walked in. Yes, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Can I sign the record of the meeting held on the 15th of October as correct? Agreed? Great. I have no urgent business to announce. And are there any disclosable pecuniary interests or other significant interests? And are there any declarations of whipping? Terry.
Okay, if I can just kick this off. So agenda item 5 is a member item relating to the changes to the winter fuel allowance and its impact on health and social care. The topic has been subject of discussions previously at full council and Business Support and Digital ONS Committee. Some members might be directly affected by the changes, others may have family members, friends or others with whom they have a close personal relationship whose entitlement to the benefit may be affected. The monitoring officer has advised that in those circumstances, members should declare an OSI. Due to the number of members that may be affected and the impact that would have on proportionality of votes, the monitoring officer has exercised a delegation to grant dispensation to all members for a period of 6 months. This meant that members who have an OSI would be entitled to remain in meetings during the discussion of the matter and to take part in the discussion and vote. The following members have previously declared an OSI in relation to themselves. That was Councillor Anang. The following members declared an OSI in relation to a close friend or relative was Councillors Cook, Gilbourne, Jackson and Wildey. And the following members declared an OSI in relation to themselves and a close friend or relative was Councillor Crozer. Does any other member present want to declare the OSI and use the dispensation granted to all members by the MO for the discussion this evening?
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, just in relation to myself.
Yourself, brilliant, thank you.
No other members? Okay, great. Thank you, Terry. Before we move on, can I please first welcome Teresa, our new Deputy Director of Public Health. It's her first meeting here tonight, so welcome, Teresa. We'll be pretty kind to you tonight. Don't worry. We're in a Christmas spirit. Also, can I remind everyone we have a very full agenda, so can I remind you all to keep introductions, not just looking at you, Nikki, sorry, to Scott mainly I'm looking at, to keep introductions as short as possible, and members have read the papers, so please use the introduction just to update the members on anything not included or to draw attention to the very key points. Thank you very much. So I'm going to item 5. Councillor Tijan, would you like to come forward and join us? And as Councillor Tijan is coming to the table, can I just, to introduce the item, can I just remind members to keep within the remit of this committee for this debate, please? So this debate is around health on the winter fuel payment. We've already discussed the benefit issue of this by another member, Councillor Nang, at Business Support already. So over to you, Councillor Tijan, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for allowing me to bring this item to this committee tonight. Today, I wish to address members to the critical implication regarding the government's decision to withdraw the winter fuel allowance and its specific impact on health and other social care in Medway, Chair. The withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance poses significant risk to our elderly population. Many pensioners may struggle to heat their homes adequately. This will lead to a rise in cold-related illnesses. This will inevitably place additional pressure on our already strained NHS and care system. The inability to maintain a warm home environment can exacerbate conditions such as respiratory diseases, cardiovascular problems, and hypothermia, resulting in increased hospital admission and longer recovery times. The decision also forces many pensioners into an impossible choice, a choice between heating their homes and affording basic necessities like food. This dilemma can lead to malnutrition and weakened immune systems, further burdening our healthcare services. The potential for increased cases of malnutrition and related health issues will require more medical intervention and support, stretching resources thin. The well-being of our elderly citizens is at stake. The lack of adequate heating can lead to social isolation as cold homes become uninhabitable for visitors and social interactions. This isolation can have severe mental health repercussions, including depression and anxiety. Our other social care services will face heightened demand as they strive to support these individuals, both physically and emotionally. The withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance would likely lead to deterioration in health inequalities, placing additional cost pressures on the council. As health disparities widen, the demand for social care services will increase, necessitating more funding and resources. The council will need to allocate more budget to address these growing needs, potentially diverting funds from other essential services. We are already facing significant health challenges due to the winter and cold weather. The withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance will exacerbate these issues, leading to a surge in cold-related illnesses and hospital admissions. Our healthcare system is already under immense pressure, and this decision will only compound the strain, making it harder to provide timely and effective care to those in need. The government decision to withdraw the winter fuel allowance has far-reaching implications for the health and well-being of our elderly population in Medway. For some of our elderly population, this cut might be the final straw and have real consequences that none of us will wish for. It is imperative that we address these challenges head-on, advocating for the reinstatement of the allowance and exploring alternative measures to support our vulnerable citizens. Together, we must ensure that no one is left to choose between heating their home and maintaining their health. The Labour policy needs to be reversed. I thank you, members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tijan. Before I move to the debate, can I ask officers if they would like to respond on any of these points, please? Councillor Jackie, or?
Nothing specific that the report covers.
Okay, no comments from any officers? Okay, straight to debate. Councillor Hamadishe.
Thank you very much, and I must say it's very disappointing that we're playing politics with the way you're speaking. You're mixing words such as could, may, and then mixing its imperative, confusing people, weaponizing a policy that has mitigations already inbuilt into it that you are very much aware of, positioning yourself as somebody who's the bastion of a solution when you present no solution at all. There are things in place that we've already put in to ensure people should apply for the right level of benefits. The means testing has already been discussed. And very quickly, because I know time is very short, there are three things I want to raise here. One, there's a lack of evidence in what you're saying. Everything is speculation. So we shouldn't be wasting time speculating on situations that have not occurred or in your own imagination. There's no data to back anything that you're saying. It's solely based upon you scaremongering. And also, as it's been discussed already, it's procedurally misplaced because it's been discussed at length already, which you know it's been discussed. It's going to waste resources, and also, unfortunately, it's going to set an unfortunate precedent for any other issue that people can present to this forum and have no evidence, and we have to allocate resources discussing it. So I would make the assertion that this should not be something that we should be discussing further within this chamber at this moment.
Thank you, Councillor Hamid-Shea. Councillor Wiley. Your microphone, Councillor Moore.
I find the no evidence comments very worrying. There was a Labour report, so I'm told, I haven't read it, but it's extensively on TV, etc., that when we were in power, the Conservatives, if we were to cut the winter fuel allowance, it would cost up to 4,000 lives. So I'm assuming there was some evidence in the Labour report that come up with that. So if there's any scaremongering, you should look to your own Labour Party's report. Getting back to what I consider slightly more sensible, in our officer's report, at 4.1.1, page 20, health risks. The inability to adequately heat environments occupied by human beings may exacerbate health issues, particularly for those pre-existing conditions like arthritis, respiratory problems and cardiovascular diseases. Cold environments can lead to higher blood pressure and increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. So yeah, that's not raising false concerns. That is concerns that are written there. I would like to ask the officers, do we know, and I don't really expect you to know the answer, do we know how many people that have arthritis, respiratory problems, cardiovascular disease, etc., out of the 44,000 pensioners that the Labour government have decided will have to decide between heating and some of them eating, and all of them...
Point of information, we're discussing Medway health issues, not national health issues.
Councillor Brown, I think Councillor Wiley is asking the directors for the stats for Medway, are you not?
I am.
I mean,
yes.
the only thing that, I mean, I will bring in a point. The only thing I will say is I'm not expecting officers to be able to give you that full set of answers unless they've got that to hand, you see.
No, I accept that, and I wouldn't expect them to be able to know how many people have arthritis, for instance, because that can be at a fairly high level and be medical, and that would be available, but...
Councillor Wiley, Leanne will come in because I think it's on 4.2.2 is where it gives you the stats on that on the report. So, Leanne?
Yeah, I think, Councillor Wiley, you're quite right. It would be very difficult for us, and we've been clear about that under 4.2.2. It's pretty much impossible to quantify how many people, but it's beyond the scope of what council could do anyway. It's a huge piece of work, so...
Yes. Okay, and I understand that and accept that. That's fine, but that does make the point that lots of people have those conditions. Out of those 44,000, I think it was slightly below that, 43,800 odd was the actual number, but 44,000 people, pensioners, that are having their winter fuel allowance stopped, except for those on certain benefits. That's not right. Those people just above that benefit threshold will suffer the most. The cost of fuel has gone up recently. That will mean more people will struggle even more. And we are being told that we are just causing worry for political reasons. I'm sorry, I feel this genuinely. I have members in my family that have arthritis, and I know for a fact that their house is heated to an uncomfortable amount because they feel the cold, etc., etc. And, well, I know of one particularly where that's been cut. It's, to me, it's unacceptable, and I honestly think every member opposite, every officer and everybody really thinks in their heart that benefit should be paid. But if anyone's playing politics, it is you. And talking about playing politics, tonight we should have had Teresa Murray, the portfolio holder, deputy leader who's responsible for the Medway healthcare, has decided not to be here tonight when she should be held to account because she didn't want to clash with this issue.
Councillor Wildy, just hold on one moment. You know, I fully accept, and I will ask both sides. We shouldn't get too personal here. And when you just accused you, I don't know who you was talking about there. We was talking about all of us there. So we need to be a little bit more careful with the language. Finally, you was at the pre-agenda meeting. You was in the pre-agenda meeting. We all agreed at that pre-agenda meeting that we would move Councillor Murray to the January meeting. You are part of that. I always use you, and Councillor Crozier. I ask you, are you content? I make sure that you're fully involved. There was no slipping Councillor Murray into January just to get out of this member item. Okay, I just want to make that clear because I think it's fair for me to say I do involve you fully in those agenda meetings, and it's not fair for you to say that I've slipped her out because you don't want to face the facts this evening. Councillor Murray wasn't asked to be here for this members item. It is a members item that is a fair point. We are allowed members items here, and thank you, Councillor Tijan, for coming. However, let's not start throwing cabinet members into the mix. Let's stick to the debate, please. So, to the point of what Councillor Tijan said, what would you now like to add?
Right. On that point, as you raised it, it was expected for Councillor Murray to be here until that pre-agenda when it was announced. But if you want to move on, I'm happy to move on.
Councillor Wildy, no, hang on. I'm not. You are right. I'm going to move on. But the reason, and Terry is here with me, we were expecting to have a CQC report from the hospital here this evening. That's what we were going to focus on because it was really urgent and important. That's why we said we would move Councillor Murray to January. But obviously, unfortunately, the CQC didn't appear in time for the meeting. But that's why we all agreed. Councillor, why did you finish up? Do you want to finish up your point?
Well, I have more questions if our officers can answer. How many pensioners would stand a reasonable chance of being granted either cold weather payments or warm home discounts if all of them applied for it? Do we know?
So we don't hold that data, and we don't. That's something that the DWP would be able to support us with. Adult social care is very much around if we are financially assessing somebody for their care, that we make sure that we disregard anything to enable them to heat their house appropriately, but we don't hold the information around the people's ability to claim that money.
Right. But could we ask DWP? Then can I recommend that we ask for that information?
It's not the remit of this committee, Councillor Wildy.
To make recommendations.
It's not the remit to go to DWP on this committee. I started off on that. That was something that could have been asked for in business support when the other member item came. It is not the remit of this committee to talk about the benefit side. Katie?
Thank you. I think we'd have to check with legal that we've actually got a legal gateway to even ask for that data because it doesn't relate to our work. But
then could I ask for a recommendation that the Cabinet look to provide proactively cold weather payments and warm home discount, and if this means setting aside normal practices, so be it, as Medway residents that previously would not and should receive the winter fuel allowance should not be left in a position to choose between eating and heating.
Councillor Wildy, you can put that recommendation forward. Once we finish the debate, you can put it forward again and we'll see if it's seconded and if it's agreed by this committee, okay? So keep that ready to read again for this committee. Okay. Councillor Mandarakis.
So to stay on the cold weather payments, the household support fund, so much of the MPs across Medway have been running sessions where pensioners can approach and talk about all of their kind of financial things we are
I can't go into the benefit side on this committee.
It's
I know what you're saying.
like,
It's about the structures. I know what you're saying. The structures is a fair point. I don't want to go too much into the benefit.
Okay. The household support fund will cover the cold weather payments. Like if you are in need, that service exists, and then I agree with Councillor Hamadisha that what we are doing now is just playing politics, but whilst we're doing it, under the previous policy, Rod Stewart and Mick Jagger could claim winter fuel allowance. Are we saying that they're in dire need, or do we say that when there is a massive black hole in a budget, we need to find somewhere we can cut that chaff, and then find those people who may fall through the middle, which is where it strays back into the benefits, so I'm going to leave it. But we find those people who may fall through the middle and make sure that they are supported.
Sorry, if I may.
Councillor Campbell, you don't want to come? Other members? Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown.
Right. I'd like to remind members that actually we're in Medway. We're talking about Medway people, the health of Medway people. We're not talking national numbers. And I would caution the members on the other side of scaremongering on 44,000 when actually the real number in Medway is more in the single thousand. That's only about numbers. But funny enough, I agree with some of the stuff that Councillor Tijan said. And as he made it political, I'll make it political. The National Health Service is in crisis, and not because of the Labour government, but for 14 years of the Tory government. So yes, I agree with you, it's under pressure. And it'll be under pressure every year till we sort it out. And this is why we're building the foundations to sort out the problems that the Tory government's left. The reasons that people are poor in their homes and they're not heated is because the decent home standard wasn't imposed during the cutting of services among the Tory government. So yes, I will play politics back because you started it, Councillor Tijan. And the other thing that I want to remind people here is we discussed all the benefit payments in the right committees. So stop blurring what we're here to do. We're here to discuss the health and well-being of Medway people, not using national statistics, not using scaremongering numbers, which Councillor Wildy, you did do more than one occasion, because you used national numbers. So I'd just like to say, we shouldn't even have had this today, but if you thought it was worthwhile and you're entitled to bring it on. But the problem is, we didn't cause the problem. We're trying to fix it. You caused the problem, and you propped up that government for 14 years. Well done.
Councillor Wildy, do you want to respond back? Your microphone, Councillor Wildy.
There seems to be one rule for us and one rule for them. I'm supposed to stand and only talk about Medway. I don't believe Mick Jagger lives in Medway. I would like to ask officers the number of pensioners, because my understanding is 44,000, as I said, 43, etc. Within Medway, not 1,000 odd that was just mentioned. And who's playing politics now, which I'm not allowed to play politics, I've been told, and I'm not. But I'm so even laughing at a situation that is considered to be at least making our pensioners uncomfortable in their own homes. And yes, it could lead to deaths. And if you read the report, it is conceivable. And you can't deny that fact. I'm sorry, I'm lost for words. that if we'd cut this, you know for a fact, you would have been jumping up and down big time. So, you know, I live with arthritis, lots of family. I am aware of what I'm talking about. This does matter, and you're behaving as if, it will be the Mick Jaggers of this world which we are wasting money on. One person in the whole country that isn't a Medway person, but you know, your side is allowed to talk about national, we're not.
Councillor Wildey?
Yes.
You're having quite a bit of time here. I'm not stopping the discussion or the debate from both sides here, okay? I am going to remind members, let's keep it calm, let's keep it focused on the issue, okay? And I do accept sometimes we can slip over into the benefit thing because it's about the structures and you both sides have done that. However, Councillor Wildey, there is not one rule for one side or one rule for the other in this committee. I treat both sides and bring you both in always into this debate. Members are allowed to bring up their own opinions, as your side do, and so does the other side. I make sure that people don't take over the discussion and lead the debate or actually are rude or anything else, and that's both sides, all right? So there's no favouritism here. You've had quite a bit at the minute. I'm going to pass to Councillor Cook. I'm going to come back to you for your recommendation.
Can I ask officers to answer the question that I asked about number of pensioners within Medway?
I think Leanne already come back about not being able to come back with that figure. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie or Leanne. Katie?
Thank you, Chair. Just the analysis that we did alongside the recently published One Medway Council plan supports the fact that there were just over 46,000 people over 65, but I'm not certain in today's climate they'd all be pensioners.
Tthank you.
Okay, thanks. Can you just turn your microphone off, Councillor Cook?
Thank you. So as I read this paper for this committee, and also I was at Business Support and at Full Council, particularly with this, for this committee, the question I was asking myself is this a change to the possibility for a healthy life for people in Medway? Has something changed that's making our job as councillors harder to ensure that Medway is a healthy place for people to live? And the first kind of discount for me was that those that are our very poorest have got the support, and we're not talking about benefits, but we can be sure from what we've seen in this report and the work that we've done that there is support for them. And those that are very wealthy, this is now means tested, they didn't need this. And I've heard, and I'm sure we've all heard, all sorts of stories of people in Medway who were using this money for running private swimming pools and other such things. So the question I'm asking myself is there a group in the middle who are now at risk of ill health because this has changed? And I have heard personally at all the committees that I've been on and in the discussions I've read that there is support for anybody who might be falling through the cracks, and that there has been, and I heard it from Councillor Murray at Full Council, many opportunities for people to engage, and that we as councillors have been and will continue to be provided with ways to signpost when we see that somebody is at risk of falling into ill health because of issues related to their circumstance. So that's how I've approached this, and I thought it might be helpful just to share that this evening, because I feel very confident that there may be a few people affected, but if there are, there is support being put in place for them through the work of the council and wider community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Crozier.
Yeah, I think I'd like to agree with Councillor Cook. I'm sitting here listening to you, both talk, and I think had we been in a similar situation last year, it would be you bringing this member's bill. And I welcome what Councillor Cook has said, because I would hope that as a Labour Party you would have looked at whether that is possible, whether those people are going to get picked up. And I think that's the important issue here, not the party politics. It's whether those people will get looked at. And if officers can give us that assurance, that would be very welcoming.
So I can talk from an adult social care perspective. If somebody is in receipt of adult social care and they contact us with concerns about their ability to pay because they have to pay for their heating, etc., we will go and support them on a one-by-one basis. Obviously, I'm not going to get into a conversation about benefits, but we will signpost to the most appropriate people to provide that support for them.
Councillor Mandarakis.
Right, so when Councillor Wildey says that if it was our side, we'd be or if it was the other way around, we'd be jumping up and down, I sat in this very room talking about Sure Start centres as a member of the public, not as a councillor, and how much parents rely on them for their children's health and well-being, along with their own health and mental well-being. Councillor Wildey, Barrett and Tijan all voted to close those centres regardless. Children's support has been butchered for the last 14 years. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. It's been butchered for the last 14 years. When this budget had a massive hole in it, there was nothing left to cut. I'm not saying that it had to be one or the other. We had to pick old people over children, but there was nowhere else to look. And Rod Stewart and Mick Jagger did get winter fuel. So those millionaires were claiming winter fuel allowance. Yes, this has been blunt, but there had to be a line somewhere. There will always be people, and that's why things like the Household Support Fund and things. So anyone who is struggling, urge them to apply for those services and to look at where else they can pick things up from.
Thank you, Councillor Medway. Councillor Nain.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask the council this question, because I know some of the councils have provided some funding, hardship funding that they've put in aside to support this most pensioners who do not have funds to meet their fuel needs during this winter. And then we have some councils that are giving out vouchers to about £200 or something to other members of the community, especially the
Sorry,
pensioners.
Councillor Nain, what was that?
What I'm saying is that some councils, from my research that I've done, some councils have set up a hardship fund whereby pensioners can have access to it when they are in need for fuel and others. And some councils are also giving vouchers to people who are pensioners who might be facing this eating and food issues during this winter time. So I want to find out from the council whether you have such a fund, or do you have such plans of giving out for vouchers to maybe people who are in situations like that.
So Councillor Nain, I'm going to refer you back to your papers. The link was in there already about what you heard at business support. You heard from all of the officers around that table of what support is available and how, for example, I'm going to do it now, so members can have a go at me, I'm falling over to the household support fund, etc., etc. There are them structures available. You heard that when you brought your members item, this same members item to business support. So I don't want to touch into the benefit side of things here. I think Jackie already just said that I'm sure that a social worker team and others, if they saw vulnerability and saw something going wrong, they would liaise and signpost immediately. So I think I don't want to go into about the voucher schemes because we touched on that already. It's not the remit of this committee to look at that. It's business support only. Is there anything else you wanted to ask apart from the voucher one? Okay. Councillor Wildey, back to you and back to your recommendation.
Thank you. I would like to ask if officers know, but I think we all generally accept that there are many people that are entitled to benefits that don't claim them, and that will have an effect on their health. So it does cross that. So there will be people... Sorry. So there will be people that will fall outside this and will be really struggling and will not claim certain benefits simply because they're not aware of them, they don't wish to, all sorts of reasons. And that's why I believe winter fuel allowance was made a universal benefit to make sure that people didn't fall through the cracks. And I'm sorry that it was a Conservative Party that thought that was important and that members opposite and the Labour Party don't think that's important. If I can have another half an hour, please, on the children's services. I'd like to talk about children's centres, if you're happy, because it was our party that put them in place.
Councillor Wildey, I went back to you to ask you to put your recommendation forward. I mean, Jackie, did you want to comment? Right. I don't want to get into this benefit discussion because it was all, if you watch back on YouTube, Councillor Wildey, you'll see what was said. There was a full discussion. Councillor Tijan chaired that. He does know there was some good detail about support on the benefit side of things. I know, Councillor Tijan, you're here for the health side, but the benefit side, we touched on that. Jackie, do you want to touch on it briefly? And then I'm going to move to, I think I've got Councillor Amadishi just coming in, and if any other member wants to come in, please do, and then I'm going to close it to your recommendation.
Yeah, thank you. So just to sort of reiterate around the signposting that we do, but we also do welfare benefit checks when the team go out to do the financial assessment to make sure people are receiving, and we support them to claim those benefits. So we're always looking at what we can do to support people. And just to come back on, if it was a case of somebody was really struggling, then we would consider that as part of their care assessment and look at what we can do to support them further.
And are you sure
Katie,
no one falls through the cracks? Are you sure no one falls through the cracks?
I can't say that nobody will ever fall through the cracks.
It is a choice thing, Councillor Wiley.
Which is why it was a universal benefit.
Yeah, but you can't force people into things if they don't want to do it. Katie, do you want to just say?
Just briefly to say that obviously the council was aware that not all pensioners sign up for pension credit, but recently did an event. We wrote out to every pensioner who we thought might be eligible, and we invited them to an event that was really well attended actually in the Pentagon Centre, and encouraged take up that way. And that's one of a series of events that have been reported, as the Chair's explained, through the Business Support and Overview and Scrutiny Committee Annual Welfare Update. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. So I saw Councillor Barrett. I'm going to go over that so once more. I've got Councillor Barrett, Councillor Amadisha, and then I come to Councillor Campbell. And then I'm going to close it for that recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Tijan had put the case over very well. You know, one could look at it nationally or locally. You know, it doesn't really matter. But looking at a little bit in the past, you know, perhaps just 2 years, when we had sort of the COVID situation, can't blame anybody around the tables here relating to that, obviously. But to my mind, this is a similar type of thing. You know, look into the future. It could sort of cripple the hospitals, you know, not just locally, nationally. So I do feel very strongly against this move ahead with the. Just let you know.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Hamadisha and then Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. And very quickly, when Tijan spoke, he did mention that this might be the final straw, of which, if you know the parable of the straw that broke the camel's back, you know it's a series of things being pounded on people to exacerbate their condition. As you mentioned COVID, you'd also be aware there are determinants of health outside of this committee that we need to discuss, such as housing. For example, it has a detrimental effect on your ability to breathe. We know we move into winter where we know bed pressures are going to be far more. But so presenting a case when you don't actually have evidence and then seeking to find evidence within the chamber in real time means you're fishing for an angle. And this subject is very sensitive, because I do appreciate and we have to value the hard work that all the older generation have done. But then to weaponize them in such a way that is emotively driven them to think there's no solution, there's no way out of the situation, when we've heard quite frankly and openly throughout this debate that we've tried to reach out to them, and we'll continue to reach out to those groups, those people that slip through the cracks. We do whatever we can to raise their awareness to what they can actually claim for to get themselves out of this situation. So I think engaging in hypothetical scenarios is a waste of time within this chamber, and it shouldn't be done at all.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out the absolutely egregious nature of debate and arguments coming from my colleagues on the other side. I think it's very typical that, Councillor Wiley, you started out saying, well, I haven't read this report. Somebody told me something about a Labour report. I don't know the evidence. And I think that kind of encapsulates what Councillor Amandish is saying. There is no evidence. You haven't clearly talked about any people you know in your wards that are affected by this. The report makes it clear it's not possible to quantify the kind of data you're asking for. And as to Councillor Barrett, equating the winter fuel allowance payment to a global pandemic, can I just point out that that's ridiculous, and it's just really inappropriate. I think fundamentally what you guys are doing is unserious, and I don't think it's appropriate in these chambers, in this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Back to you for the recommendation only, Councillor Wildey. So the recommendation that you'd like to be seconded and voted on.
As I've been accused of things, if
I'm not going to get into any more arguing, Councillor Wildey.
4.11, well, hopefully it's debates, not arguing. Mental health was mentioned, which is in the report at 4.3.1. Mental well-being, the financial and physical implications of pensioners not being able to provide adequate heating can also impact mental health. So there's proof there if you want proof. It's I'm sorry, I assumed everybody had read the report.
Councillor Wildey,
yes.
I think that's a really... I'm not going to have any more comments like that from any side, especially from you.
No.
My members will all read their papers. I would hope your side does the same, so does this side. I'm not having those comments. Can you move to the recommendation? And I will come back to you, Councillor Tijan, to add any bit on if you want to, just as a comeback, because you have come here this evening, and not in normal circumstances you would have been a member on the committee. So I will come back to you in a moment for a brief finish from you.
Would you like to put the recommendation? No evidence, and there's evidence in the report, but my recommendation: the Cabinet looked to provide proactively cold weather payments and warm home discount. If this means setting aside normal practice, so be it. Medway residents that previously would have had and should receive winter fuel allowance should not be left in a position of choosing between eating and heating. This is simply asking for Cabinet to look at it again, and I wouldn't have thought even your members would have had problems with that.
It's up to individual members to vote on that. So is it seconded, Councillor Wildey? Okay, so members have heard that recommendation. Councillor Tijan, just to close before I go to the vote on the recommendation, would you like to just say something really quick?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to come back. I'm really disappointed at some of the comments. This is not a political matter. And, you know, in the past, we've heard members talk about cuts from regardless of whatever government, and if you feel strongly about it and it affects your resident, it affects your community, I think, you know, we should be accepting in the fact that we came along to highlight a concern and not to be accused of politicizing or weaponizing a real issue. When you talk to residents and on the doorsteps like we have been doing, there are many, many residents who are very concerned about this. And, you know, I'm sure they will be quite disappointed with some of the comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tijan. So we've got a recommendation which has been seconded. Those for the recommendation.
Just a point of a question. Is that recommendation possible within this remit? Because it is asking to set money aside that isn't
I've checked that
specific.
already. It's okay,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's
great.
great.
It is.
I'm glad to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, otherwise, yeah, it is. So, can I go for 4 again for it, please? And can we count, please? Yeah. And against the recommendation?
6.
Okay. So the recommendation is lost, Councillor Wildey. Councillor Crozier?
Abstention.
Abstention for Councillor Crozier. Yeah, okay. Councillor Tijan, before I move to the Vice Chair, you know, we do have a democratic structure here, and I do thank you for coming here this evening. And you have heard points from both sides, and you know, we have all brought members' items before, and it is, you know, no matter who the administration or not, it can be quite difficult. So I do appreciate you coming here this evening, but unfortunately, the recommendation has been lost. So, Vice Chair.
I move that the committee notes the response to the member item.
Is that seconded? Okay, agreed? Agreed, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tijan. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to item 6, I'm going to call now Scott Elliott for the Medway food strategy. Just a brief outline, first of all, please, Scott.
Of course. So pleased to introduce the Medway food strategy. This is a Medway-wide strategy as opposed to just a Medway Council document. The strategy has a number of key objectives, including reducing food waste, tackling food poverty, improving healthy eating, reducing obesity. As the subject of food is very broad, we could have taken this paper to any of the scrutiny meetings, but in the spirit of being scrutinised once, we felt that the health aspect of this clearly is a key component of the strategy, therefore this is an ideal place to come. We are making a success a number of factors relating to food, including the strategy, best exemplified by the fact that Medway achieved the bronze status, Sustainable Food Places Award, but we definitely want to reach gold as soon as possible, as well as achieve a number of other key priorities within the strategy. So welcome all councillors' support for the strategy and also encourage all Medway Council services and its partners to support in any way they can.
Thank you, Scott. A very well-written strategy. Members? Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. You'll wish I'd left it off in a minute. Can I ask, when was this consultation carried out? Was this before the winter fuel allowance was cut? And do you have any thoughts on what difference that may have made to the consultation?
Within the engagement exercise, we use a number of data sources, but we did do some very purposeful engagement. It's a really important part, obviously, of any strategy and plan we develop, listening to our residents. University of Greenwich did a really good project for us, and they opened up a survey and held a number of focus groups using a number of different ways to attract, just not the normal people that just always respond to surveys. It was completed, most of the survey engagement was around May, so well before any changes to any government. And within the strategy, one of the key objectives we're asking, because we talk about food strategy being an important element, what's important to people, and what was important to people back in May was around tackling food poverty, as well as all the other aspects of food strategy.
Thank you. If I can ask another question, which I hope we'll all agree with to some extent. Page 62, we, Medway Council, we did have a policy of not allowing new takeaways within, I believe, 250 metres of a school, etc. 400, sorry. In my ward, I had a takeaway open, parked on the roadside, and we couldn't get that moved. I mean, I did go to everybody I could think of, and we had no regulations to move that on, as they had a street licence, street traders licence. Could that be looked at or changed so that such premises can't open up, just outside the school? This was literally within 20 metres of a nursery and the edge of a school. So hopefully we can all agree with that one.
Yep. So the policy you're referring to was actually a supplementary planning guidance document as opposed to a full local plan policy. So we implemented it back in 2014, was one of the first councils to implement it. In 2014, it was a slightly different world to 2024. So we are definitely looking at that. So having a conversation with Dave during the local plan, how we can take that from a supplementary planning document, guidance document, the word being supplementary, it can be considered amongst some other things to having a fuller policy within this kind of suite of policy additions to the local plans. That's definitely one we'd like to strengthen that, because as you say, most people understand the correlation between hot food takeaways and unhealthy foods and consumption of them. Street trading vendors is a slightly different issue. That's around trading licenses, so that's a licensing issue taken up by a separate committee, but absolutely, I think that's a really important part, and I know council portfolio holders are very keen to support that.
Can I make that a recommendation if Scott and Terry could come up with the wording, but just to strengthen the policy on takeaways not being too close to schools?
I mean, I can leave it with Terry and maybe Scott, etc. I think we can put it in there. I don't think we can make a full recommendation. It can be a suggestion because it goes to another committee. But it can be. We can say that there was the discussion around that around wanting to strengthen you know, that process. I don't think any members, although they can come in, would want that. You know, we did agree that there shouldn't be food premises within that 400, and anyone popping up, we should look at that in some way. So, but it isn't really for here. Terry, unless I'm right.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking about, I mean, licensing itself actually can be a council function anyway, but it could be a recommendation that from a health point of view, but it might be worth us embedding it in the minutes.
I think the original one came from this committee.
Yeah, I was just saying to Katie, it was from a task group, the Healthy Eating Sites with Children and Young People's ONS committee.
Right. So long as it ends up getting strengthened, and I think we all agree with that.
I think we reinforce it in the minutes, and Scott, we can take that back as well, can't we? We reinforce it.
As an action, yeah.
As an action. Councillor Mandarakis.
So just two that are quite quick. One was the cookery courses that I mentioned. I wondered if we had stats on what the take-up of those was like, and also any of the outcomes. So how many families have said they've adjusted their eating habits off the back of having attended those. And then the last one was a bit of a plea. So I read the bit about the community garden projects. And I've said in here before that I'm a trustee of the Sunlight Centre, and I wondered, we've got 2 community gardens, so I wondered if you could drop me an email just on how we could get involved in that. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely. Community gardens is we were talking about this morning actually. We're looking at with another community group, so we'd be really keen to make that part of that project. Any community partner that's interested, and this is when members come into their own as as ward council and much anything else. Many of you will be representatives at local schools and community organisations, and please do use the Medway Food Partnership as a bit of an umbrella brand to kind of link up partners. Normally you've got a person that wants to have growing happening, and somebody's got space and somebody's got some skills. So actually one of our key roles here, without having to spend lots of money we don't have, is to just kind of link up assets and link up wants and needs. And that's a really key part of being part of the food partnership and the subgroups that feed into that. So yeah, we can definitely, I'll email you and we pick that conversation up. In terms of cookery sessions, we had, got our numbers here, in the last year. And these are just the Medway Council Public Health Team cookery sessions. There's a whole suite of fantastic cookery sessions that happen in schools every single day. But we had 405 families attend either Little Food Explorers cookery workshop or courses, or Little Chef Explorer courses, or Try Cookery courses in the last full year.
Scott and Councillor Mandarakis, just for clarity, protecting both of you for declaration, you haven't agreed to help and supply Sunlight. The discussion will come outside of this meeting. I don't want it to be seen from fairness that we're agreeing something with a member, and it protects both sides. So just to make sure that's taken offline rather than inside the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Can I quickly say as well, I find tenuous things where I'm like, I need to declare the Sunlight just in case, and this meeting is the one where I didn't, and then I spotted that, and I was like, actually I want to talk about it now, so.
Just to protect both, it's just to protect everyone, that obviously decisions are made looking at the whole process and making sure you do it offline, not within the meeting. Okay. Councillor Nang, I'll come to you.
Thank you, Chair. When reading the report, I read that you said non-ethnic groups are at a high risk when it comes to food insecurity. If I may ask, is there any particular reason why non-ethnic groups are at high risk when it comes to food security? And if there is any reason, what measures or what plans are you putting in place to make sure that you reduce that high risk?
So there's a number of health inequalities which go hand in hand with lots of protected characteristics, which hence why many protected characteristics are in there in the first place. So ethnicity is a key determinant of people's health outcomes, and from a food poverty perspective, it will be the overlap, no doubt, in terms of deprivation. So more people from ethnic minority groups will have a lower income bracket than a white British equivalent. according to the data we have. So in terms of things that we are doing specifically within the food partnership, we heavily engage with some really fantastic local community groups. So Medway Diversity Forum, Nigerian Association, Ghanaian Association, Muslim Welfare Association. We have some fantastic links. So we purposely do support a number of different community groups to really try and combat that unfair health outcome that we do see based on certain protected characteristics.
Councillor,
Thank
come
you.
back.
Okay, I have another question. When we talk about sustainable access to affordable food, I believe we are talking about making sure that our foods are grown locally, and then we eat locally, so that there wouldn't be any need to transport it from far places to that place. Now, with the current government giving us, they've set target for us to build, number of buildings that are supposed to be built within a particular year. So with that target set by government, I believe if we are not careful, and with the farmers' inheritance tax, we are going to lose most of our farmlands because we need to build. Now, so in terms of sustainability, in terms of government giving target, inheritance tax, and cause most of our farmers locally to maybe stop farming, how are we going to achieve that sustainability when it comes to food security? Because we need to produce the food locally so that we avoid emission and all those other things. So what are the plans being put in place to make sure that we are protecting our farms to ensure that we get sustainable access to affordable food?
That was discussed actually at the Health and Wellbeing Board, and we had a really good, it was quite handy because Catherine Smith from the planning policy team was here. So from obviously Medway, everyone here will be very aware Medway is developing its local plan, and a key aspect around the local plan is how do we use our space and our place, how do we use our green, our brown and our kind of grey areas, and that keenness to keep growing local food, producing local food was made very clear through the Health and Wellbeing Board recommendation actually, a conversation actually. So Catherine took that away to make sure that's considered as the local plan is developed. From a food production perspective, we had a fantastic presentation from a local farmer, Medway farmer, that came to the food partnership session a couple of months ago and talked about how they are moving back. So it's not even just about protecting the land, it's about their production techniques. So again, what we're hoping to use the Medway Food Partnership is to bring food growers together so they can really develop a bit of a community of practice and support one another. But yeah, you make a very good point. Food production, locally reducing food waste is a massively important part of us achieving our Gold Food Standards Awards.
Councillor Hamadishe.
Thank you. Before I start, I just want to welcome Teresa into your new role. Well done. Your predecessor, James Williams, he was very instrumental in ensuring African and Caribbean food, and the way we prepare our food was done in a way that was balanced and nutritious. So he had very challenging conversations within the community to say, why are you using this ingredient? Use a different ingredient. So hopefully we can continue that partnership. I've read through the report, and I do second it. I think it's great. Just want to very quickly big up, we had a jollof rice competition last month, and myself, Councillor Annan, we were the judges there. Nigeria won the best cuisine. So that being said, it was an opportunity for the community to engage with tasting different foods from different places. It was used as a unifying event. We had over 100 people there tasting jollof rice, making jollof rice, many of them for the very first time. Can we ensure that we have more activities, at least if not directly managed by your team, but you reach out to other communities that then you can work in collaboration so that we can have more of this outreach, sharing of cuisine going on, because it has better health outcomes and social cohesion. Thank you.
Yes, 100%. So and it's not just one community organisation and trust that, we've committed to work. We absolutely want as many of our different charities and community groups to come work with us. So a great example we've done is our culturally sensitive Eat Well guides. So some of the criticisms, correct criticisms we've had over the last sort of decade, when you produce something from British Heart Foundation, Diabetes UK, it tends to be very kind of westernised food. You know, I grew up with in the 90s, you know, living in Maidstone, but actually our community is so much more diverse now. So what I'd encourage anybody to have a look at on our Better Medway website, we've got some really fantastic culturally sensitive Eat Well guides, which much more represent foods of community groups that, you know, sit outside, you know, what me and my friends were in Maidstone in 1990. So we've got some brilliant stuff on there, and it's balanced around that. So that's about how fantastic food can be culturally celebrated, can be part of a, you know, really good engagement exercise. But we work with loads of communities to develop that with our community groups. So more of that, please. As many more people that engage the food partnership, the richer we can make it.
Thank you, Councillor Amdishani. I've got Councillor Brown, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Cook, and I'm going to close it there. So if we can keep the questions direct to Scott, please. Thank you.
Sorry, first of all, it's a comment. Thank you for the strategy. I'm glad to hear that we're on a food journey, because our tastes develop, and the fact that food is the sustenance that we all need. It's nice to see that we have moved the journey, and thank you for that, from just a small proportion of the community. But what I'd like to tell the committee, and Scott will know this, and I know that other departments in the council are working on this, and it goes back to Councillor Annan's question regarding the farmers. We need the farmers, we know that, but the good news from the council is that the council is represented on the Lower Medway IDB and the North Kent Marshes IDB, which we are now going to combine, and landowners and farmers are the backbone of those boards, and those boards are where we can influence some of the discussion around the need for localised food, the need for fruit. I know we're the Garden of England, or at least used to be, but the technical stuff around farming now is very, very important to our economy, and I welcome the fact that planning, this committee and Regen are all on the same page regarding land management, which in essence is food production. And I thank you for that, Scott. What I'd like to know is, on the food partnership end, have we seen a growing involvement, or have we seen a slackening off from other partners? And I'm particularly thinking about the people who would not traditionally want to worry about whether people are eating healthy or not. Thank you.
I'm very glad you brought that up. The biggest area that we could develop further as a food partnership is having more food businesses on board. So people that sell food, whether that be retailers, local individual cafes, or shops and supermarkets. You know, realistically, most people are in the food industry. You know, there might be a voluntary sector in the food industry, so minimum they've got to cover costs, and there's a fair chunk of people that might, you know, be able to, you know, want to turn a profit. It's a profit-making thing as a private or a large business. We'd love to have more of those partners involved. I genuinely believe health and wealth can go hand in hand. So again, if there's anybody that's part of any Chamber of Commerce groups, running your own local business, I genuinely think that the food partnership working collaboratively can improve all those things. Basically add to have more customers coming through the door, and small changes that could be made to eating menus would lead to big changes if we can do it at scale, really. So yeah, big plea if there's groups out there to engage the food partnership. It's food businesses that we really would love to get more involved in. So yeah, more the better.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Thank you, Scott. Councillor Campbell.
I was going to go for the jollof rice competition thing because I thought it was such an awesome idea, but Councillor Hamandisha got in there first. I think that this is very topical because we've got the junk food advert ban in the news now. So I feel, as a mother, I feel quite positive to see that this government has a serious commitment to sort of health and children's health and controlling obesity. I think that's a very, very positive sort of move to make. When I used to work in London with charities, I think I noticed a lot of really small projects, community projects, where they would grow their own food and then they would cook with those, and then they would kind of share the food in communities. There's some of that in Medway as well. I am aware of it, but I feel like London does it really well. The urban space, growing of food and sharing that, and sort of embedding diversity of cultures within that. So I know this relies on the voluntary sector. I know it needs to be driven by the community, but anything the council can do to encourage something like that would be just amazing. It's such an exciting journey to see people bringing their cultural heritage, growing food in urban spaces. And I wondered in your conversations with the local plan, for the local plan, if any kind of concession can be made for, you know, for space to do things like that in terms of tiny patches within urban areas which communities can utilize to do this, because I think that'll play a big part in bringing a younger generation into habits of cooking and eating well. And I think food is a big communal thing, isn't it? It's really important for people as a community to share the culture of cooking and eating. So it'd be so exciting to see more of that in Medway.
I mean, over to you, Scott. I think, you know, the waiting list for allotments is massive, isn't it? So, I mean, people do want to grow, which is amazing, but they just can't get the space.
Yeah, and we had a conversation with planners about this. I'm sure Dave wouldn't like me to, you know, commit to that being the top priority in the local plan, but we're certainly sort of encouraging that from a health impact assessment perspective. And it all comes down to balance, doesn't it? You know, what is that space better used for a healthcare facility or whatever? So I wouldn't never like to be a planner, because that just seems like a bit of a challenging conundrum, which is more important. So good luck to David. One of the great examples of what we are doing at the moment, though, is through our schools. Schools are such a fantastic place. So we have commissioned Food for Life to support all schools to work towards their a Food for Life accreditation. So again, if members are, you know, maybe governors within schools, you know, people are, please do encourage them. We've got another space, another 25 schools. And honestly, some of those projects these guys are doing, growing, cooking, eating projects, bringing in cultural food, using it as a real topic of debate, and a great part of every single curriculum lesson. I can make an argument it could be part of every single curriculum because I'm paid to do it. But yeah, it's a really good thing. So the Food for Life programme is a really good way that's happening. But if that can be happened intergenerationally, again, we'd love to champion that within the food partnership and bring people together to link them up. Because normally you just need some of a space, some of a skill, some of a want.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, matching the assets, what you were saying earlier about connecting the assets within the community. And yeah, the Food for Life program is fantastic. I've already shared it with all the schools in my ward, and I'll do it again. So thank you for the reminder.
It's a really good point, because there are streets in London that I know that even grow vegetables in their pots. They have all pots up the road with all vegetables growing out. Councillor Cook, finally.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question about partnerships, but I think that's been covered. And just to say, in reading the report, again, just how grateful we are for our community's engagement in this area. You know, you only have to look on each of our wards in our local community groups. People are really concerned about access to good food and sharing that. The question I wanted to pick up on, just it hadn't been raised yet, on 56, the report in partnership with the universities. So I was really pleased to go to the Medway Business Innovation Conference with the universities a few weeks ago. Lauren Edwards, our MP, started that conference off, and I was absolutely fascinated by the work happening in Medway at our universities around kind of micronutrients, new food, sustainable technologies. Really keen to just understand a little bit more in the time we've got about how we're working in partnership with those groups. Thank you.
Yeah, all universities actually are really good. So there's a number of great examples. So the Pilkington building, which is just not too far from here, is such a great example of a space where they have made that kind of balance of turning a profit, or at least making ends meet, and producing really healthy, relatively locally produced food. Almost zero food waste. They're an excellent example of an agency that support us, and that's part of the campus here, so students get to benefit from that. But the food labs you mentioned that are just they're nationally and internationally exemplar. So using this university to really, it could be a really sellable thing, couldn't it, to keep Medway as that great place to work, live, visit, and learn. Using this university space as a food hub, both in terms of how it uses food, how it produces food, I think is a really important part. And yeah, our University of Kent and Greenwich particularly have actively supported the food partnership. They hosted us for free the other day and had a really good session with them. So we're keen to keep that going, and hopefully more and more schools join that collaboration, more and more of the individual schools within the join our collaboration.
Councillor Cook. Scott, you'll be relieved to know my first couple of comments just that you could take away, because I think if James Blessing was here now, he'd be giving me that side eye, because I think I bring it up every year about I have this bugbear around. I know it is a real issue, obesity, and when we talk about weight management support, etc. But there's also the other side, the other end of that as well. You know, there are healthy BMIs. There are people with high BMIs that are healthy, and it's just one of those things that really is something that maybe we can bring back next year around maybe a total different discussion when we look at the public health report around what we're doing with that. And you know, in the reports you sort of talk about the self-harm and the suicide. We do know with people on, you know, people that are struggling with their eating, etc., are not getting access to service and not getting access to the support they need. And then they pick up some of our wonderful, and it is really good, some of our wonderful advertising. It's all about you're too fat, you have to lose weight. So I think, apart from that, the report is amazing, don't get me wrong. It's just that I have to throw that in because, you know, it's one of those passions that I have about we focus too much sometimes, especially with young people growing up through the system, being told what is it, what, you know, jump on the scales and this is what you should be. That's just it's just something me and you can argue about in the corridors at another time. The one question I do want to ask is around, you know, the food banks and everyone we have some amazing organisations out there, some great organisations out there. And when you drive around, though, you still see those queues growing. You see that you see a lot of organisations have massive queues outside. And I'm just wondering, because a lot of these organisations are doing well, what is the plan going forward to reduce those lines? And you might not be able to answer it totally tonight, you know, but actually we should be doing prevention. Obviously, food banks have been here, and without the opposite side saying I'm being political, food banks have increased over the years. I'm not going to say one way or another, but they have. What are we actually doing to reduce that dependency, or the norm, should I say, about, you know, going there instead of someone going to one of those amazing agencies and getting their food voucher? What intervention are we doing to say, what is your problem? Why are you here? What do we need to do? It's not, you know, that's just me, Scott. I just wanted to find out from you what intervention is being done under the Amazing Food Partnership, because it is a really good partnership.
Yeah, one of the benefits of being part of a food partnership is you get to learn from other areas as well. So Brighton, Bristol, Bury, I don't think they all begin with B, but they do tend to be all kind of really good exemplars. And Bury particularly has made a real shift around its food banks, going from that kind of ear, hand to mouth kind of thing to creating, if you look at a map, they've got a lovely little map around how can access food support. And the shift around how they've moved people from a dependency model to a more, okay, there's a small nominal payment I make and I get better choice. So there's a whole science behind what we call it, like a dependency ladder. So traditionally, it is about, yeah, creating that shift. So while somebody's there receiving a food parcel, what else can we do around that? And we have got a couple of charities in Medway and community organisations that have made that shift, and our portfolio holder has actually tasked us with, you know, developing that model. Again, it comes back down to scale. Our food bank, as you see from the stats in the paper, our food bank access is very, very high in Medway, in line with other parts of the country, I'd say, in terms of our deprivation level. But yeah, there's some really good models around the country where they've made that shift for people, not saying you can't now access a food bank, but while you're here, can you access this? And that giving people a better choice and feeling less dependence. There are some good models that we can learn from around the country, and we do intend to. We visited a really good scheme in Ramsgate as a team 2 weeks ago, and we've been talking to them around how that can be scaled up in Medway, so we have a few more opportunities to keep doing that. So it's definitely an aspiration for the strategy.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks. And sorry for throwing that first bit in, but I will speak to Terry about maybe bringing that back as an item and looking at how young people, young adults access the service with the weight management stuff. But excellent report. Thank you so much, Vice Chair.
Can I just clarify, do I need to mention the recommendation, or is that going to be, Councillor Wildey's recommendation, is that going to be in the minutes? Or? You're exactly right. The recommendation, Councillor Wildey, we're going to just put it into the minutes, aren't we? We're going to highlight it into the minutes about that policy, strengthening the policy. But I don't think we can... Go on, Terry.
If I can put it into the minutes and see, because there might be licensing law around whether or not it's even possible. So I think if I can put it into the minutes for officers to explore the possibility, if it is a possibility, then there's something there to go from in terms of Cabinet changing the policy. But I'm not even sure it's something that we might be able to do because I just don't understand the licensing laws around that. Is that okay? Rather than having a recommendation that might not be able to go anywhere.
Just to reassure you, though, Councillor, I don't want to open up too much, but I think I'm going to reassure you now. I don't think there's much pushback around the comment you made about we do need to strengthen that, making sure that food is not sold. So don't worry about that element. I don't think there's any pushback from members around that.
My microphone wouldn't work because there's too many on, but no, that's fine. If Terry and Scott can come up with a wording that will be the most effective, yep, I'm happy with that. Cheers.
Thank you.
I move that we recommend the strategy to Cabinet for approval.
Is that seconded? Seconded. And agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for that report. It went on longer than what we thought for that. We gave you that little bit of leeway tonight. Don't get too used to that. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 7, Nikki. And sorry to keep you waiting. You've been waiting there very patiently. Again, the same as what I like to say, you've given a very comprehensive report. I think, I must say, a real thorough report. It was a real pleasure to read. So, and you gave us a whole background, but tonight is around the integrated neighbourhoods that we need to really touch on. Is that okay? Over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me back. I think, as I said at the last meeting, I can't tell the story of what we're trying to do with integrated neighbourhood teams without telling the story of the Health and Care Partnership, because the integrated neighbourhood team is the end, that's going to be the end product of all the other work that's coming together. The Health and Care Partnership, as you know, is made up of all the statutory organisations across our patch, so local authority, all our health partners, Health Watcher, a member of that group as well, and also a key component are our voluntary and community and faith sectors as members. So the integrated neighbourhood teams comprise of all of those elements, and they're very much about building communities, building community resilience, and giving our population a very different offer. So I'm going to leave it really brief and leave it there because I think the report kind of speaks for itself, but obviously happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nikki. Members. Councillor Wiley.
I do have some concerns, but if I can start with my pet hate, it does go into lots and lots of initials which are meaningless unless you keep looking back to find what they're supposed to mean. I've never understood why the words can't be put in instead of a row of, yeah. And I am dyslexic, so it might be a bigger thing for me than most, but failing that, at least a glossary at the back would have been helpful. Once upon a time, we had something called plain English, which reports were supposed to be written in, but if I can leave that there. Now, I do have some concerns because this is all about working together. But in Medway, and I'm not just banging on about GPs as normal, but GPs are a shortage in Medway. Pharmacists, especially dispensing pharmacists, etc., even down to some of the phlebotomists, etc., there seems to be shortages of them, or that's my experience. So how will these networks work when there's gaps in the service, or how will that be covered? And a big part of the report talks about ending the silo working, which you as well as others around the table, we must have read that many times. Will it actually work? Is there any kickback? You know, I see that as a good thing if it works, but as I say, I've heard that's going to happen lots of times and it's never really got there. And the ICB seems to have a big role in this and a big responsibility, and we all know they're going through a change. And personally, I don't think they've done Medway many favours over the years, except for the diagnostic centres, which was mostly your work by memory. But with that to one side, I remember them moving more things out of Medway than bringing them in. So those are my questions and comments.
Thank you. And obviously alongside this, a comprehensive workforce strategy, and we're all working, when you're talking about, I think the silo piece and the workforce piece come together. I don't think that we are working in silo anymore. I think that was the case. I think the Health and Care Partnership, the way that it's developed and the way that it continues to develop, is moving much more to a united vision of what is right for place, so what is right for Medway. I don't work for the ICB, I work for the Health and Care Partnership, and everyone that belongs to that Health and Care Partnership is focused on what's right for Medway. So I think there is a unity, there is a different offer on the table, and I think that silo working has shifted somewhat considerably, and I think it continues to shift. In relation to workforce, we have got workforce gaps, absolutely. I think we outlined in the paper sort of some of the economic empowerment we're trying to do. We're working really closely with the universities, but we're also working with lower level because not everybody has the ability to go to or wants to go to university. So we're looking at how we can explore sort of entry-level qualifications so we can build our own workforce for people that come from Medway to support Medway and to stay in Medway going forwards. So there's a lot of work going on. I'm not going to say we haven't got gaps. We have got gaps. We've got GP gaps significantly. The Health and Care Partnerships will look at the skill set of what's required. So it's not always a GP that is needed to see somebody. So it'll right person, right place, at right time.
So, and if I can ask one more question, probably the most important one, how does a resident get in touch with the integrated neighbourhood team?
So the integrated neighbourhood team is the end product of a 5-year strategy that's just beginning. So the integrated neighbourhood team at the moment, it isn't there. Right. All the work components that are going to create the neighbourhood team are already in place and are already starting. So at the moment, it's accessing the same way that people would normally access services. But I would hope, as over time, as that develops, that there will be easier mechanisms to access services. But I can't answer that at the moment because they're not developed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. I'm not seeing any other members. Councillor Crozier.
I'm just a little bit confused about the public access to it. So can you just explain? It's not accessible.
Councillor Crozier, just put your mic on. Is it on? Or is it towards you a little bit? That's better.
Yeah. It's not accessible at the moment, is what you're saying?
So the neighbourhood...
There's nothing we can come and see.
Yeah, no, it's nothing you can come and see. The neighbourhood teams are a way of working. So at the moment, you have different organisations and different components in different areas. This is about bringing, looking at what's needed in a neighbourhood. So it might be a neighbourhood of, an elderly population that's needs a certain requirement, or it might be, and so we'd put more resources into that particular area to meet that particular need. So it's not anything that you can physically see, it's around how our current workforce realigns to meet the needs of actual neighbourhoods as opposed to a one-size-fits-all.
What size are the neighbourhoods? Are they?
They're primary care network neighbourhoods,
okay.
So that's detailed in the report.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you there. Okay, I'm just going to take you two, and then I'm going to... Jackie, do you want to just come back on that question? I'll finish with you both.
Thank you. So I just want to reiterate what Nikki's saying about the way the Health and Care Partnership works. I think if Nikki and Mark at the back and I aren't in a meeting at least 2 or 3 times a week, there's something not quite right. We do work really closely together. I just wanted to get across the point of Nikki's view about this is how we start. So we've seen the senior leadership team working really closely together. It's then about how do we start moving that down and how do we start developing. So when Nikki says about not accessing it, people can still access their services, come to social care, come to the GPs, but the intention is to pull that all together into those teams across that 5 years. But I just wanted to give some assurance when Nikki talks about that approach and how we work together. I want to reiterate that is happening. It's not just Nikki's version of events, it is across the board.
Thank you, Jackie. Councillor Hamadishi.
Thank you, Nikki, for a detailed report. My question and also my concern is around staff retention. I do recognise the unification of these neighbourhood teams is so vital to making this a reality. The truth is we have people working across different bandings, you know, from social care to nurses, all across different bandings, and we've got the voluntary sector as well. How are you reconciling those different bandings at pay points, knowing that we also got pressures from neighbouring boroughs that might pay London waiting, such as Bexley? So how are you going to retain the staff that are in place? And one of them, the last one, is my real concern about creating new roles that will not last long. For example, when this exercise was done many moons ago, not for this authority, it was around creating Band 4 nurses as a way of uplifting the care workers, but not quite giving them a nurse status. So they've got more responsibilities, but they're not quite at Band 5 level nurse. A lot of those nurses who are Band 4 can't find jobs at Band 4. It's almost like a redundant position. So just safeguards around, if you're going to create new roles, that they're wrapped around solid baselines, like a Band 5 or Band 6 across the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And at the moment, we're not looking at creating new roles. We're looking at realigning the current workforce to meet the needs of certain communities, because at the moment, the workforce is distributed across the whole of the locality as opposed to where it's particularly needed. So we're looking at realigning the current workforce as opposed to creating new roles. But on that, we are working with the university to see what opportunities we can put in place for particularly T-level students. We're doing a lot of work with T-level students, and then how we can then grow those T-level students to go on to an apprenticeship to then go on to create some of that workforce as well. So there is work going on to create roles, but they will fill existing positions at the moment, not a new workforce. And I can't, unfortunately, the banding is different between local authority and health, and that's a little bit out of my jurisdiction, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamadishi. Councillor Cook, finally.
Thank you. It was really interesting to read. Thank you so much. I was really interested in the Making Every Adult Matter and the trauma-informed work. I think that's fascinating. I was really pleased to see Wayfield and Weedswood mentioned specifically as an area of focus, because that's my ward. So thank you so much for that. I think the big question in my mind as I was reading it is, I can see the contextualisation. That works for me. I can see that idea of bringing individuals together to avoid the silos, as others have mentioned. What I can't see is how it still supports where the wider service providers and the wider areas have still got such area of need. So, for example, I know we're not talking about children here, but access to autism diagnosis, access to support for eating disorders, we've mentioned that kind of world already, access to talking therapies, all these areas that at the moment are so stretched. I don't see how this provides more service. I can see that there's better signposting, but how does it help when there's so many other areas that are still facing such significant challenges? Thank you. Just a little question. Thank you.
That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think what what we see when we have organisations working, and I'm going to say silo, but I don't mean, because obviously the health service does work together and it does connect, but when we have organisations working in silo, there's a lot of duplication. So for example, someone will go to the GP, they'll have an assessment done, they'll have tests done, they'll then potentially move on to community services, they'll have a repeat of that, they'll go to acute services, they'll have a repeat of that. By bringing the neighbourhoods together, we stop that duplication. So we have a trusted assessor type model. We do something once. So that reduces the duplication. It benefits the workforce, obviously, because you're doing things only once. And it opens up, it should open up services because it will allow more capacity within the system.
Is that okay, Councillor? Do you want to come back?
Yeah, if I can just come back. No, I can really see that, and I think it's the big question and why HASC exists. So, I think that's a really helpful answer. I can see, the part of this in the solving of the bigger questions. Thank you, Chair.
Just from me, Nikki, I suppose, there's always that difficult one, isn't it? There's always one I always say to you about the VCS, and I know in your report it's really good, and it talks about, the VCS are really important, the voluntary sector, etc. I just want to re-emphasise again, especially during the process that you're still on, is don't forget those voluntary sector organisations, the small ones, the little hidden heroes that are not involved in the big ones and not involved in that round table, because, to make things work really well together, you can come back, it's all right, you need to make sure that they're also engaged with, and, surveys don't always bring them in, people sending out a survey don't always bring their voices in. My real big question, though, I like it, and Mark could be sitting over there now thinking Dan's in a good mood now, but the chair's in a good mood tonight, but I do really like it. I suppose my only worry is, for many of us that have seen this around the table, will it go to plan? Will it be funded and will it be delivered? Hopefully it won't stop the mechanism of change, because we see change happen so often, then all of a sudden it just comes to a grinding halt because maybe that didn't work, can't fund that, can't do that element. And I know it's not a thing or an actual visible thing we're seeing here. We're seeing we're seeing a real change in the way that it operates, and it's needed. It is needed. Have you got any, I'm not putting you on the spot, but is there any concerns around that funding element? Because we've got a procurement process starting soon, or starting. Will it impact or will it make it better?
So if I can take your VCSEF question first, or comment, absolutely agree. And the VCSEF are critical to anything that we want to do. They are the heart of our communities. Through the Health and Care Partnership, we've brought in almost £1 million to the VCSEF this year through doing joint bids, joint applications, supporting small organisations. We've got 21 small projects going at the moment with small organisations, micro-organisations, to support community cohesion and to support programmes and projects that have been identified by those communities themselves. So not anything that's been directed downwards, this has all come upwards, and that's critical if we're going to be moving forward. From a funding point of view, yes, that is a concern. We all know that funding is significantly challenged across all sectors. So we are working tirelessly to look for external funding. We're tapping into, we've got a huge business network within our patch, which is great. We're tapping into funding through business. We're tapping into grants and lotteries and applications to make sure that we've got, the next 3 years funded for some of these smaller initiatives, because you're right, they stop and then we get back on the hamster wheel and then we start them again in 6 months' time, and that's not any good for anybody. So absolutely. Is this going to continue? We hope so. The Health and Care Partnership are committed. Regardless of the procurement that you've referenced, we are committed to transforming services. So I don't know what that looks like, because obviously we need the outcome of the procurement to know where that's going, but we are committed to transforming community services. So, and that's all partners at the Health and Care Partnership.
Thank you, Nikki. And I know I don't have to ask you, you're getting good support from Medway, obviously, on that partnership. Yeah. Okay, Vice Chair.
I move that we note the report. Big speaking part.
Is that seconded? Seconded? Agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you very much. Thanks for your report. Now we go to item 8, and that's the ICB. Mark, would you like to come forward? It is Christmas, Mark. You know, you can see we're being quite nice tonight. Don't worry, it's not as bad as before at other times.
Is that just once a year then?
Mark, do you want to just give a little? If you just give a little update, I know Leanne's going to say a little something about what we've done behind the scenes, and I'll give a little something on that as well. Okay.
I'll keep it very brief. So we've presented the paper. I'm sure you've all read it. And I think it would be helpful if Leanne just describes the meeting that we had and the outcomes from the 30th, because I think for me that was a bit of a milestone, and I hope that we can continue to work together to deliver a better community services for the Medway population. But you've hopefully read the paper. I'm here to answer questions, and I think one of the commitments from the ICB was we would continue to come back whenever required and give you either a written update or a face-to-face update. So hence I'm here today.
Before I just go to Leanne, Mark, can you just touch on that the tenders, the notice has gone out, hasn't it? Can you just give us the timelines on that? Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, I've missed the big news. So I think, as you're aware, we previously had indicated we had hoped to get to a position where we'd be able to put the ITT live on Atomus. So after a couple of fairly hectic days, it's fair to say, because I don't think we've ever done anything on the scale of this. We've uploaded something in the region of 80 documents. So there's a huge amount of work that's gone into each of those documents. We have had to review and make sure they accurately reflect what we're asking the providers and bidders to do. But as of this afternoon, that has gone live. So we have now started that bidding process, and we've got a period of around about 12 weeks for bidders to look at the documentation and then submit their bids. Then we get through a timeline of hoping to get to a place towards the end of April, May, where we go to an award, and then there's a whole series of other sort of ICB-related documentation we need to complete and just check with our boards that that's good to go. Then we get to a mobilisation period. Again, we've given a generous mobilisation period of, again, around about 12 weeks. And then we get to, we're hoping to have that completed by the end of September, but we recognise there has been a little bit of slippage and we may need to review the final go live date. So, yeah, we've started the journey down of getting to a bidder by September 2025, October 2025.
Leanne.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. I think this committee will remember that there was several fairly robust discussions around the procurement. At the last HASC, I requested that the Chair allow me to take this item offline. That happened at the end of October, and it was a very good meeting. I think all parties were able to discuss, quite frankly, what concerned them. And the good thing was that there was an alignment, I think, between the ICB and its intentions and its necessary work as business as usual. And we were able to absolutely have our viewpoint heard. You'll see in 4.3 there were some key points made, and some of you were at that meeting, going from the need for a good needs assessment right through to assurances about the element of how we will work with the interface with Swale. So there's a number of things there, and I think there was an alignment and agreement. And from that point on, I think the ground shifted, if you like, and everyone is now pointed in the same direction, and we can get on with business as usual. But what I will say is the work of this committee allowed a richness to that alignment. It was difficult. I think we all experienced that, but I think, as Mark has alluded to, we've moved on and there's a deeper understanding. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nan. Members, anything from members? Nothing. That's a first. That's a first. I might have a couple of questions. You haven't moved on that quick, Mark. Hang on a minute. I think it's Councillor White. Did you want to say something?
We've been through a lot of these questions in detail. I did have a couple of detailed questions which I sent by email and have answers, so I'm happy if you want to move on.
So just for me, I think just to thank, I know Councillor Campbell was with me, and the opposition members were there, and Councillor Crozier was there, and I think with the officers, it did. There was I'm going to still say there was a bit of a light bulb moment, I think, about how we all worked together with the SV, and I think it was accepted that the SV was there and we worked, and that was a really good, nice move for us to go into because it allowed that transparency. And Mark, I've always said, and I'm going to say it again online here publicly, I've always said that you've worked really well with us in this committee. You've been in difficult meetings with us, and you've been alongside other officers, and you've really held steadfast. But I have no doubt your commitment is to the residents and the health of people in Medway and Swale and other areas. So I do thank you for that. I think moving forward, we're going to have some informal development sessions offline for members as well. So we're going to open the doors to the ICB, to the MI5, to these secret towers. I don't think it's that. I'm being told it's not going to be that exciting, but it's really good. The towers, I mean, not the officers. But we're going to allow us and officers offline to have those discussions from different teams, so we know a little bit more about the ICB. Are not going anywhere. They're going to be around a while, so it's going to give us time to really get to know each other as well and to work together. And I think, Mark, you might want to come back. I think the only other thing I said was just keep it transparent. If something bad is going to happen, tell us, because that's how we come on your journey with you. We don't want nothing sugar-coated, and you never have really sugar-coated it, but I don't want it from other angles. So it's really positive in my mind. Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. So I echo what you said. I think that it was a bit of a light bulb moment, and I think it was helped because we had the session with Terry where we talked around what an SV meant. And I think also from an ICB's point of view, it was like, actually, there's things that we do that probably would be helpful for this committee to understand. So I think the door is open, and it would be good if we could have some of those dialogues so you understand the things that we need to do, the cycles that we need to do, and how you can help and support us, and vice versa, so that there aren't any surprises, that everything is on the table and we discuss it in an open, transparent way.
And we know it's going to be a difficult road ahead for you guys as well. You're doing lots of contracts. There's lots of stuff happening, lots of new things happening. That's where we do need to all work together to try and obviously there'll be challenge during that whole process, even from us. But we need to make sure that we get to the other side and that there are some great services for our residents. That's what we need. Vice Chair.
I move that the committee notes the report.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is that seconded? Seconded. Thank you. Agreed, members? Agreed. Mark, you're free to go. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to now move to item 9. I'm presuming, is that Leanne, or is that? I'm presuming it's the same as, unless there's any questions, it's the same risk.
Chair, I'll take it that the paper and the narrative has been read, and I'll just go straight to questions.
Questions, members? No questions. Oh, Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. Page 229, 493 staff, 61 being MECC trained. Can I ask what's the turnover of these staff? And I'm sure it tells me what MEC means, MECC, yes it does up there, sorry. But 12% trained and a 5% target seems very low, or have I just not understood that?
Apologies. I'm going to have to come back to you on that, Councillor. I can explain the making every contact count element, but with regard to the turnover, because it's with regard to external care providers, I don't have that information available, so we'll be able to come back to you with that. If you're happy, I'll do a note about the turnover and a bit of a description about making every contact count as well.
Yep, fine to Terry and she'll forward it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Page 235, it says local unvalidated data. Can you explain some of that? Because it's important that people feel safe.
Yeah, thank you. So every year we do a survey out to people. It's only a proportion of people. We don't send it to all residents in all people receiving adult social care services in Medway, but we send it out to a proportion of people asking if they feel that the services that they are being provided with leave them feeling safe and secure. So the element around the unvalidated data is because it's proportionate and looking against last year's information versus this year's information. We're not been able to do that yet.
Thank you. And last one. I do have a list, but I'll stick with this last one. Direct payments. Now, I understand the concept of direct payments and, people being in charge of what they wish to spend the money on, but why is that seen as a good thing so long as the resident gets the service they want? If we commission a service and they sign up for that, in these papers, it's seen as a good thing, the more people that have direct payments. And I've never quite understood that, as long as they do get the service they need.
Okay. So it's actually a theme at the January HASC. Just very, very briefly, if somebody's in control and has the money to be able to purchase their own services, it means that they can choose when somebody comes into their household and so on and so forth. But we'll be able to explain that in more detail at the January HASC meeting.
Yeah, yes. It's just I do know residents that like the service they get, why do they want to but we are judged on moving them to direct payments.
So we never force anybody down that route. We suggest to them, and if they want to go down that route, that's fine, but we would never push anybody.
No, but it is seen in the papers as a good thing.
Absolutely,
the more that, and it's
and that's because the whole part around social care is about giving people choice and control, and a direct payment is deemed to give somebody that choice and that control.
If we can go into that more on January.
Yeah, so if you remember, Councillor Wiley, the direct payments comes up quite a lot. It comes up in our risk, comes up as a red.
Yeah.
So we decided to bring it into January's to give social care a really good go with us and to dig into it a bit more and for us to have a good look at that. So we're going to...
to me, it shouldn't be red or green. It should be measured differently. But fine.
That's fine. We'll look at that. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wiley.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair.
I move that the committee notes the report.
Seconded? And is that agreed, members? Agreed, thank you. Now, members, we've got items 10, 11 and 12. Just as a prelude, Kate is going to take these items together. As you know, we did have those members that could attend was a brilliant session offline, informally, with Katie and her team. Well, Katie and Dave, Katie and the team, Katie and David, and Jackie as well. And I think all of you found it a real benefit. It was a real beneficial session where we really opened up the doors on on understanding everything that we needed to do for this. So over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this really brief. So all three of these reports were presented to Cabinet in November, and the first two summarise the budget monitoring positions based on returns managers completed for the second round. There's nothing really of any note for this committee in terms of capital. For revenue, the Council projects an overspend of 11.2 million, which is an improvement of 5 million from the position reported at round one. And in the terms of the remit of this committee, that's around 5.5 million of that. In terms of the draft budget for next year, so this report represents the Cabinet consulting with members of HASC on the proposals in that budget. It does include significant growth in the budget requirement, and it also summarises the announcements from the Government's autumn budget. Since this report was written, the Government have published a local government finance policy statement, and whilst that's clear that the government funding is going to be targeted more towards local authorities with higher deprivation and lower ability to raise local taxes, we think that will be positive for us. But basically, until the settlement is published, which we're expecting on the week commencing 16th of December as a nice little Christmas gift, we won't actually know individual local authority allocations. So once that's published, we'll report that to Cabinet in a really clear, this is what that does to Medway's budget, and then we'll incorporate that detail into the budget for February Cabinet, alongside any recommendations from this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions at all? Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. Just one. Page 274, under risk management. It's B3, which is... Sorry, I'll read the rest. The Council overspends against the agreed budget. Now, the risk is B, likely, and the impact would be moderate. Now, as we are borrowing not to overspend, surely that risk would be more than moderate. If we overspend when we are borrowing an awful lot of money to make sure we don't overspend. If we then end up overspending, surely it will be catastrophic, not moderate.
Thank you, Chair. So that specific risk that you're looking at relates to the capital programme. Now, obviously, capital, it's actually much easier to change your plans, right? So you can re-specify the building that you're building, or you can use additional funding sources like Section 106, etc. Whereas in the revenue budget, you typically have statutory demands that you have to fulfil. So you, to some extent, have less control in year on your budget. The risk in both the revenue budget monitoring and in the draft budget is actually rated higher than the one in the capital monitoring. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waddy. No other members? So what we're doing here, Vice Chair, we are agreeing 10, 11 and 12.
So then I'll just read the text under item 12, yeah. So I move that the committee notes that Cabinet has instructed officers to continue to work with portfolio holders in formulating robust proposals to reduce the budget deficit for 2025-26 and to continue to liaise with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to secure support through the Exceptional Financial Support Scheme. I also move that the committee's comments on the proposals outlined in the draft capital and revenue budgets 2025-26 are fed back to the Business Support and Digital Overview and Scrutiny Committee in January.
Excellent. Thank you. Is that seconded? Seconded? Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you very much. Katie and David, thank you for that. Terry. Over to you for the work programme, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I will keep this brief as well. Obviously, all the changes in the work programme are set out in sections 4.2 and 4.3. I will just draw your attention to the ICB winter plan, which I literally circulated to you a few hours ago, so you probably haven't had a chance to read it, but that is now in your inbox for you to have a look for information. They have offered a member briefing. I think that might be quite difficult to organise this close to Christmas, but the offer's there should members wish to take that up. I have some information around the ADHD that they've asked me to share you again, just for information, which I will circulate tomorrow, and I will let you know about those dates around the engagement events when they become available. And in terms of the hospital CQC, that obviously wasn't published in time for today's meeting. They are absolutely committed to coming in January, so we will keep everything crossed.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Terry? Okay, can I just finish? Can I just add on for that? There's two things really for the Terry part. Obviously, we've mentioned quite a lot this evening about the development sessions, the informal development sessions, should I say, because they're offline from ONS. I would really encourage those that haven't attended any to please make sure you come along, because we are going to be opening up to many more providers and organisations, including from the ICB, and from more internal departments from social care, etc., etc. I'm going to say it again, like I always have, social care will be a priority next year. I keep saying that, and then health steals the whole agenda, but we will be making sure we assist Jackie in looking at some of the great work that's being done and also the challenges in Medway. But any suggestions around providers or people you do want to talk to on these informal sessions, let Terry know, and we will make sure that's done. I also met with the Chief Exec of the hospital, who's willing to have visits to, I know David and I do go there, but willing to have visits up to the hospital in small groups. I can arrange that, where you'll get a tour of A&E and the important challenged areas within that hospital at this moment in time. So probably in the new year we can circulate a list and draw up some groups. Can't all go at once, it's too much to go around A&E. Councillor Wiley? Can
I just add, the hospital do have their public informative meetings that members might like to attend as well. No,
you're exactly right, you're exactly right. It'd just be really good when we question MFT, etc., it'd be really good for you to come in and see the casualty unit, especially with the CQC coming forward.
So just on that point, I'm completely aware at how busy members all are, but I will be bothering you for lots of dates so that I can try and get the most suitable dates in terms of availability. So apologies in advance, but in the new year, your inbox is going to be full of dates, so I'm sorry about that.
And what we do is, for those members that can't come, we will record the session, because if the other side's happy for that, we should record it so that no one misses out on what's being done. But your attendance would be much appreciated. Fine, Leanne? You go and I'll just close it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I realise we're coming to the end of 2024, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the committee for all the support that you've given officers. It's been our pleasure to serve you through 2024. So season's greetings to you all, and have a good break when you get to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lan, and that's what I was going to say as well. I'm sure from this committee we would like to thank all the officers. It's been a difficult year for a lot of reasons. We've challenged, and you just saw now with that previous item, we've moved ahead in a positive way. But that doesn't stop us challenging and still being there and doing what we need to do. But thank all the officers, but thank you all members as well. But I just wanted to say for Terry. We all thought last year, if you remember, I was devastated when Michael was leaving. I thought no one's going to be able to fill Michael's shoes on this committee, and Terry has filled them extremely well, and she tells me off and she holds me to account, and it works though, and we get on really well. But thank you, Terry, for all your support alongside you guys as well. You're all so good. But from a democratic service, we've got a wonderful democratic services team on all committees. I've got to keep saying that. I don't mean I have to keep saying it, but I do have to say that I'm sure all members agree we wouldn't be able to do our job without their support, and we're so lucky on this committee with you, so thank you very much. And Merry Christmas, guys, and have a lovely...
Can you just move the recommendation?
Oh, sorry, Chair, you can. It's Vice Chair. Vice Chair, would you... I'll just say Merry Christmas all again now. Vice Chair.
I move that the committee notes the report and agrees the work programme as set out at Appendix 1 to the report, subject to accepting the proposed changes outlined in italic text on Appendix 1.
Is that seconded? Is that agreed? Agreed. And I've got 2030 as the close. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. Thank you.
And can I just say thank you for your Christmas gift for all of us. Thank you.
Council.